yesterday with an overview of Judaism and some key events and some key beliefs. Today we're going to be looking at Abraham, the founder of Judaism, and we're also going to wind up throughout these next couple of days looking at different Hebrew leaders. And we want to be thinking, how did they contribute to Judaism? Why are they important? Why are we having them in our narrative right here? So, disclaimer, of course, remember, our primary source for the Hebrews is the Torah, their holy scriptures. All right, and I'm going to be going from according to the Torah, the Old Testament. We're going to be focusing on events that happened in the book of Genesis. Some of these things that we're going to talk about may or may not seem miraculous to you, and it's up to you whether you choose to believe those things, but this is, the narrative that we have for it. So I'm not telling you what to believe, that's between you. Okay, so Abraham was born Abram, and was born around 2000 BCE. Now, remember BCE, BC, same thing. It's just before Common Era or before Christ, depending on if you want your calendar to be based on the life and death of Jesus Christ. From here on out, I'm going to refer to him as Abraham, but he's going to be Abram until a specific part of the story, which we're going to reference. So I just don't want to confuse you. Born Abram, everybody knows him as Abraham. That's why I'm going to continually refer to him as Abraham. Now, he is the man that is credited with starting Judaism. The first one to say there is one God and we should believe him. Name's Yahweh. And the key moment where this is really going to happen is where Abraham, then Abram, makes a covenant with God. Now, this is one of your vocabulary words, so if you didn't cut and paste, hopefully you remember. Covenant with God is a sacred agreement or an agreement with God. So, covenant is a sacred agreement. Tattoo it to your brains. Know it in your brain noggins, kids. So, he makes a sacred agreement with God. And this we see referenced in Genesis 15, which I'm going to go and give a paraphrase of it. So I'm just going to open up my little, I need to do some artery, which, why is this not working? It's not letting me do my search. I'm trying to find Paint. Here's Paint 3D. That'll work good enough. So basically, as the story goes, Abraham is told to go get several sacrifices. So he gets like a sheep, but the sheep is red because he's told to cut the sheep in twine. Yes? Oh, is that just pressing a button? Not sure. All right, so he cuts the sheep in half. He gets maybe a cow or something, cuts it in two. Some other animals, cuts it in two. Now, if you're cutting animals in half, now the fancy word for that is bifurcation, which don't ever get bifurcated. Trust me, don't get cut in two. But if you were to be cut in two, it would be a humongous mess, right? There'd be blood and guts and yuckiness all over. It's all right, Haley. We're happy we have you. So there's going to be like blood all around. Now, this was actually an ancient tradition that we have here, because this might sound like super duper weird to you. Obviously, all of this red represents the animal sacrifices and all the blood and guts that would be there. This is much more appealing to look at than what it really would be. It would be a nasty, nasty sight. Like, ooh, I hate it when I pass a deer that's been smushed and smashed on the road. Anyways, Abraham is instructed, take these sacrifices, cut them in half, make a pathway. I think there are some little birdies there too, and they don't get cut in half because they're teeny tiny, but they're sacrificed. And the way it would go, this was a tradition, the two people making an agreement would walk through that. And what it was saying basically, so let's pretend that Nicholas and Lance are making a covenant. They're doing a trade deal. They would do this, and basically Nick is saying, hey, if I back out of my deal, if I don't do my part, may this happen to me. And by this, bifurcation, split in two. And Lance walks through and says, hey, if I mess up on my deal with you, may this happen to me, meaning cut in half, which I don't know about you, staying in one piece is very high on my priority list. I do not want to be cut in half because, ew, that would hurt. I mean, my flu shot hurt yesterday. I imagine that would hurt much worse. So, Abraham, and this is, like I said, this is from Genesis 15, our primary source for our Hebrews, does this. He sets up the sacrifices, but then it's late, and he falls asleep. But then he has a dream. And in this dream, he sees a floating lantern. All right? This floating lantern walks through the bloody, yucky, yuck mess, but then walks again. And of course, this represents that the Spirit of God has walked through the covenantal deal not once but twice, taking Abraham's turn as well, his side of the covenant. So with this, we have this agreement between God and Abraham in Genesis 15 here, and saying that God is going to keep Abraham's end of the bargain, God is going to keep his end of the bargain, or else splitsy and twosy, which youchie. Okay, so, although I know probably you guys are like, I want to see more art from Mr. Kenny. It was the best art I've ever seen. I know, it was real good. Yeah, I can tell that blank look on your face right there that you're like, yeah, it was amazing. Nick knows it. He's shaking his head. Yeah, thank you. So in this, we have God telling Abraham to go to Canaan. Now, in these wacky ventures, he's going to go to Egypt, he's going to go to Canaan, all these sorts of places, many things. We are not going to get to every story with Abraham in there because people like spend much of their lives studying the first parts of Genesis. But anyways, God promises Abraham that he would be the father of a nation, which Abraham and his wife Sarai, which then is renamed to Sarah, winds up going thinking quite comical because they are super duper old and they don't have any kids yet. And typically, you know, you're not old when you have all your kidarinos. So Abraham, though, is told he is going to be a father of a nation, that his offspring will be more than when you look up at the sky in a beautiful clear night and see the stars. More than that, because we know there are lots and lots of stars out there. More than the sands when you go to the beach. That's a lot of descendants. And those descendants wind up becoming the Hebrews. All right? So like we said, the beginning of this faith, Abraham starts Judaism with the covenant he makes with God. Now, Abraham promised that his descendants will always follow and obey God. Now, anyone familiar with the story of the Israelites will know that there are going to be bumps in the road. Thank goodness that, you know, the Spirit of God walked through that covenant thing twice as opposed to Abraham going, because youchies. And in this instance, God renames Abram to Abraham, which is what we all know him as, which literally means father of many. So this is the story of how Abram gets his name Abraham and starts the religion of Judaism, which becomes one of the major religions of the world. Now, one of the things that sets this apart with this covenant is the idea that the reward for the covenant is the promised land, which is present-day Israel/Palestine. And so the people are going to go live there and create the nation of Israel and Judah, and eventually, of course, it's going to wind up getting conquered by the Babylonians and the Assyrians. Let's flip the order because it's Assyrians and Babylonians. My apologies. And when we say Babylonians, we mean Neo-Babylonians or Chaldeans. But let's not get in the weeds right here. We're not there yet. But that's why after World War II, we have the kingdom or the nation of Israel being established. One other fun story that we have when we study Abraham, of course, is the story of him and his son Isaac, because Isaac is born to Abraham between him and Sarah. So we do have a child. We actually have two children born, but Isaac is going to be the one we focus on. And as the story goes, Abraham is told to sacrifice his son Isaac, which imagine how heartbreaking that would be to finally have the joy of having your child and then told you have to give that child up. And you have this very somber time where, of course, Abraham, is going up the mountain to make the sacrifice with Isaac. And Isaac goes, "Where's the sacrifice, Dad? Where's the animal?" And Abraham says, "God will provide." And then, of course, he's put on the altar. Isaac is probably like, "Wait a minute, this is not what I signed up for." Abraham is probably thinking, "This is not what I signed up for either, but I got to obey." And then he's stopped before the terrible moment. Thank God, right? And he's told, "No, don't do it." And there in the thicket is a ram, which goes and takes the place of Isaac and is then sacrificed. So that's probably the most fun or impactful story in there that we also mention for this. Like I said, we only have the Torah as our primary source for our Hebrews. Tomorrow, we're going to go and talk about Moses and the Exodus and the Ten Commandments. So stay tuned. Same Mr. Kenny channel, same Mr. Kenny time. But that is our notes for the day, my chair. So I'm going to end the recording right now. I actually remembered this